Hello, folks. This is part two of the Nginx upgrade and Nginx Ingress controller upgrades, and in general about upgrades, right? So when you do upgrades, you need to understand the functionality. I told you that we need to understand the functionality of each and everything that's happening in the software, and you need to understand the functionality of how the software interacts with other softwares, and what its true nature is, its core nature is, and its extended nature is through extensions, plugins, and all. So in the case of Nginx upgrade, I forgot to mention that. So I was talking about plugins, right? Through Lua based Nginx Lua plugins or Nginx modules, right? You need to understand if the modules or the plugins are compatible with the Nginx version. So it's possible that they are not compatible with the Nginx version because let's say the plugin refers to some feature of older version of Nginx, and the new version of Nginx doesn't have that feature, and hence the extension or the plugin will not work, right? So understand the compatibility between Nginx and Nginx plugins. And any Nginx modules, right? Written in C, and then here it's written in Lua. Let's say written in Lua, etc. Right. So understand this, right? And for basically, when you understand what the software does, you try to understand what it needs, and if it needs to interact with another software, then you need to understand the compatibility of the two softwares, right? The versions that you know are compatible. The version of software 1 compared to the version of software 2. Which versions of the software 1 and software 2 are compatible, right? So in the Ingress controller, there are actually a lot of moving parts because there is the Ingress controller basically has the Ingress controller and the Nginx. The work of the Nginx is to be a web server, read the configuration file, and serve the web traffic or TCP traffic and all. The thing is, Ingress controller is actually a Kubernetes thing, so you need to understand. So it will perform Kubernetes API operations, so it will hit the Kubernetes API, and you need to understand if the Ingress controller is compatible. The version of Ingress controller is compatible with the version of Kubernetes API that you have, right? The version of Kubernetes basically that you have, and because it's going to make some API calls and all. And you also need to understand if the Ingress controller version is compatible with the Ingress resources that you have. Will it work together, right? Basically, the Kubernetes API compatibility and also the API resource compatibility, right? The API group and the API group version and all that, and how it's compatible. And of course, we spoke about how the Nginx Ingress controller, how is it compatible with the Nginx? Because the Ingress controller is the one that's going to talk to the Kubernetes API, get the ingresses, which is the web server configuration, in this case the Nginx server configuration, and then configure the Nginx, right? So it should know both Kubernetes API, like it should understand that it should be compatible, and it should also, understand Nginx and how to configure the Nginx. Just a moment. Turn on reactions to express yourself during. Anyways. Cool. Sorry. Cool. So, apart from this, how you install the Ingress controller, right? So, if you're using Helm, what is the version of Helm and what is the version of Helm chart that you're using? Understand if your Helm version works with the new Helm chart. Ideally, the latest version of Helm as of this recording is version 3, some version in 3, because there was a version 2 which worked totally differently using something called Tiller, which was a server-side component for Helm, with a client-side component for Helm also, where there was a Helm client and then the Helm server. From Helm 3 is only a client. It's a client-only mode, and it talks to the Kubernetes API server directly. And when you look at a Helm chart, you need to understand, so Helm chart is basically what does it do? It basically has a package of files, right? These are template files, template YAML files, along with some, say, basically things like notes, text, YAML, like notes, text, template file, and also some metadata like what are the parameters that this package can take, because it's a parameterized package where based on the parameters the templates will take up the parameters and then give you a specific output, right? So it's the values YAML along with the templates, which is the Helm chart. So Helm chart and the values put together, and it also has default values, and then the values passed by the user. You get the final output, which is the final Kubernetes resources YAMLs for multiple resources. So in the case of an Ingress controller, so you will actually have the, let's say, a deployment, let's say it will have a service account, let's say it will have a role and role binding so that it can talk to the Kubernetes API server using the service account which is bound to that role, right? So the Ingress controller will have that service account, and the service account will belong to a role, and the role will have certain permissions, and hence the Ingress controller will be able to talk to the Kubernetes API server to get the Ingress resource, right? And it will be able to configure the Nginx also. So you need to understand these Kubernetes resources that are there in the Helm chart. Are they compatible with the Kubernetes API version that you have, or the Kubernetes version that you have? And the next thing is, this Helm chart, can it actually work? Okay, let's say it does work with Kubernetes version, the whatever version that you have. Will it work with the Ingress controller version, the new version that you have? Like, do you just have to change the version of the Ingress controller container image in the Helm chart values YAML, and will everything work? Because the Ingress controller probably needs some set of resources, let's say service account, config map, role binding, and then the deployment to run the Ingress controller itself using a pod, right? Just an example. So secrets and all that, right? So if this is the case, is the new version of the Ingress controller also installed like this and configured like this on Kubernetes, right? And does it require the same set of resources, or does it require some extra resources? Does it require some specific configuration in those resources which the current Helm chart doesn't support, right? So you'll have to look at that. So clearly when you see over here, there is these are all interconnected. There is a lot of connectivity between what is the Nginx version, the Ingress controller, the Ingress controller, and so Nginx Ingress controller version, Kubernetes version, Alpine, this is the operating system where the Nginx can be installed. So the container image has this as the base image, let's say. So and then the Nginx version itself, right? What it is compatible, and then the Helm chart version. So this refers to the Helm chart that they are providing officially. There are probably a lot of other Helm charts, and then you also have to look at of course, if there's an Nginx version and if it has plugins or modules or all that, you need to look at what are the plugins and modules, and if those versions are compatible with the latest Nginx version, if you're upgrading the Nginx version and all that. So it's like a lot of chain of versions, and you have to see the compatibility matrix or matrix and see if the different versions of the software that you have, will it all work together, right, end to end in an integrated manner. So you need to check that out, right, or else it's going to be a problem. So I missed to tell this, that's why. So I wanted to do a part 2 like this and talk about the compatibility between the different versions that are at play over here. So basically you'll check out just a moment, basically you'll check out check compatibility between the versions of the different softwares involved at play over here, which refers to the Nginx Ingress controller version, Kubernetes version, API version, control plane version, right? Yeah. And then the Nginx version, base image, operating system version, Ingress, controller, so I think this will be Ingress controller, Ingress controllers, controller images, base image, operating system version, right? So here it's about Nginx. Here it's about compatibility between Nginx and the operating system, base image, operating system, right? And also compatibility between Nginx or the Ingress controller and the base image operating system version, right? And then you have just a moment. Anyway, so cool. So and then you have just a moment. And then you have finally Nginx, Ingress controller, Kubernetes, Nginx version, and the Helm chart version, right? Helm chart version, right? And over here you'll have Nginx plugin versions of the Nginx plugins, versions of the Nginx modules, right? So all of these. So even in the Nginx upgrade, you'll actually notice this, right? You'll notice some of these. So you'll say you won't have a Helm chart issue over here or this. So you'll probably have this and not this because this is here, and the base image operating system and this, right? So you'll have the Nginx stuff over here, just the controller stuff now will not be there. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about this, and yeah, that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.